Welcome back, E3 members. Part 3 of my Miami Airshow F-16 breakdown. Again, if you haven't seen part 1 or 2, you want to check that out. Also, our Carbon Cub flight, which we retraced this exact ground track in the Carbon Cub, which was pretty cool for me to go do that just a few months back in the E3 Carbon Cub. So go check that video out as well. Well, let's jump into it. We have just finished the slow speed pass and now getting ready to set up for the knife edge. So the jet has been moving very slow, and now we're accelerating back out into about 500 knots for the next maneuver. We actually had a dinner with Chad Barber getting ready to set up for the extra flying. We actually talked about the knife edge and some of the things you're getting ready to see here in this very video. So if you haven't seen that chef talk, go ahead and check that out as well. Altitude. Jet's always yelling, but accelerating out at 500 feet. 500 knots rather, 500 feet, pop. And now knife edge pass. I'm actually over rotating. I'm stepping full top rudder, but I'm over rotating because you want to have the visual illusion for the crowd that it's perpendicular to them. So if you're directly under it, you can actually see over rotating just slightly coming out of the seats. I'm having to hold on there because I'm bunting a little bit that top rudder and basically doing a parabola as we arc across the show line here. This is one of the rare times the fighter pilot touches the rudder pedals. Here's the max climb. That transition to the high show that we talked about in part 2. That is why I transitioned to be able to do this next maneuver. Dropping down.
Last three, Dojo. And I'm back up the screen. I'm off there.
Dropping down to 200 feet, accelerating out to about 500 knots or so, because we're going to go straight in the climb. You heard last three. That was my heads up to Dojo, who's flying the F-35, and he's holding, and I'm giving him a warning so that ideally in the next few minutes, once I finish my demo, he will be at show center at the right time for me to rejoin, and we do the heritage flight profile. Again, I mentioned in part 1, normally we'd have a Mustang or a P-47, some kind of warbird out there. Today wasn't the case because the weather had actually been really bad and the Mustang couldn't get in. So he and I are going to fly the heritage flight profile after this, which ironically, I guess the Viper would have been the old jet in the heritage flight. So that's the last 3 there, and just communicate that. So lots happening in this short time span. So afterburner full half stick, so 9G pull here, trying to go straight up, unloaded rolls, which is always a challenge here. I usually left it in AB just a little bit, then snap it to mil power just to save a little bit of gas. And then the goal here is to roll out either perpendicular or pointed at the crowd. Spiral descent. Just for something to do, I suppose. Now what's happening now, you have to terminate the spiral descent, I believe 5,000 feet. It was never a factor. But I know Dojo is holding behind the crowd. I'm getting ready to go behind the crowd. And I'll be accelerating out for the dedication pass, which is a very high G.
Out for the dedication pass, 2.4 power.
Surprising dedication pass, like everything else, is high G. But after this one, Dojo and I'll be rejoining together. I just told my safety observer I'm out for the dedication pass, 2.4 mil power only. And by 2.4, I'm telling him I got 2,400 pounds of gas, and I'll be doing the dedication pass and mil power only. So if he doesn't see the afterburner, he knows I don't have an engine problem. I didn't unintentionally or forget to use afterburner. Again, making sure all cylinders are firing upstairs in my head. But again, I'm not doing it in afterburner because I'm trying to conserve fuel for the heritage flight, as well as going back and landing in case I need some kind of alternate and go to Miami if someone crumps the runway there at Opelika. So I kind of float this out because I'm capped with mil power. But again, the Block 50 Viper with the GE motor, it has no problem accelerating. You can see moving pretty quick. Like most, trying to get to 600 knots. I mean, you can see how fast the jet's moving, just bouncing around. Pretty awesome going down the government cut. Slightly slower in the Carbon Cub. You just see the vapor and the wing flex. So cooking here.
Altitude. Altitude.
This is probably 9.5 Gs through there. Ease off because it's a long crowd line. And then FAA regs mandate to be above the crowd at 1,000 feet. Back on the G, I'm starting to look for the F-35.
Up to the rejoin, Dojo. Joel. Slowing to 350.
So I'm up for the rejoin. I told him I'm slowing to 350 knots. Probably most people find comical, but in a fighter jet, you can do that. I probably the exit there doing about 600 knots. If you're going to rejoin with the Mustang, that's the toughest part because
Slowing 300.
you just did a 9.5 G pass, and you're doing like a 360-degree turn,
I'm right over the canal across.
pulling 9+ Gs, just trying to facilitate the rejoin and get rid of about 400 knots of smash to rejoin the Mustang going 200 knots. So going from 600 knots to 250 knots, you only got G to do it. Dojo and I just worked the rejoin.
Slowing 250.
Dojo's rejoining on me. I'm trying to get back to show center. So we did this a little non-standard.
Send 300.
You would think seeing a fighter is an easy thing to do, but turns out it's actually a pretty difficult thing to do. I guess they're designed that way.
Send 350.
So now that he's on board, I'm accelerating out. So I had slowed it all the way down to 250 knots just to facilitate his rejoin, give him some extra knots of closure. And then we're going to roll into the Heritage Flight Profile, which old school was the first maneuver, just parking past. So he's flying fingertip off me, which again, this is pretty standard. And, you know, for two fighters, I mean, it looks cool. I guess it's something you do in your sleep. If you had a Mustang out front, that's when things start getting a little bit different because you're really getting a similar aircraft put together here.
Altitude. Altitude.
So it's just arcing pass. We'll jump around back for the flat pass here. Let's see. As we come around, you can see Dojo pop out there. It's a good looking jet, I think. Maybe not with its landing gear down.
Altitude. 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 Altitude.
So we do a couple more passes there. I won't bore you with the rest, but I hope you enjoyed that breakdown of the Miami Air Show. Again, 3-part series. So check that out. And E3 members, I'll see you next time.